Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode. I'm so excited to have you here. I want to do like a mid-year update on this episode. I usually do an update at the end of the year. I give you kind of like a year in review. This isn't going to be like that, but just to say, I don't normally kind of do an update in July. Right now, we're in July 2025, but some things have happened, and I've been sort of observing myself going through this transition period that I am in my life. And it's a lot of what I coach my clients on. And I've noticed some of the things that I do differently that saves me a lot of the pain and suffering that I think other people going through this tend to heap on themselves. And so I figured it might be helpful to relate kind of what I'm going through, what I'm doing, and more importantly, what I'm not doing, because I think a lot of you might relate. And I think a lot of us are likely going through very similar feelings as lots of things are happening in the world. And so I figured I would just take an episode to talk to you about what's going on with me. And hopefully that helps you wherever you're at in your career or your life. So if you listened like a couple episodes ago, I had said that I was going to Banff with my family for 3 weeks. One of our dreams has been to live in other places, and we knew that we weren't going to be able to do that kind of full time with our kids in school and our community in California. And so we had just decided we're going to try to work towards going places for the summer, renting a house, kind of having a slower travel, working from there. My husband and I are both lucky enough that we can work remotely. And so we did this kind of work play type situation. I think it's funny because I don't typically batch my content, my podcasts and stuff. I don't like doing it. I've tried doing it. I get that it is helpful for the like systems side of it. Like if you want to create a system and you want to make sure that you have a cushion in case something comes up and you don't have to constantly be making content every week. I understand the appeal of it. What I don't like about it is like I feel like I batched 5 episodes and then I went to Banff and the world went to hell. Not really. I mean, the world has kind of always been a dumpster fire, but a lot happened in that month. And it felt very disjointed for me, even listening to my own podcast, which I don't listen to episodes, but seeing the episodes come out. I felt like all this stuff is happening and I'm just like talking about a random topic and I'm not talking about anything. And so it felt weird for me. But that is all to say, like, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is because a lot happened in that month for me. So I went to Banff, which was wonderful, and it was dreamy, and it was amazing. But the day that I got to Banff was when Israel bombed Iran. And again, if you're a longtime listener, then you know I am Iranian, and you know I recently went to Iran a couple of months ago. And so obviously a lot of my trip, those couple of weeks, was spent with a lot of anxiety and a lot of checking the news and a lot of trying to check in with my family in Iran and trying to do what I could to kind of spread information and help them and figure out where they were going to be. And some of them were leaving Tehran and some of them were staying, and the internet was being cut. There was a lot happening. And it was a very weird juxtaposition. It was a very strange time to sort of be on vacation and be in this really beautiful place and have a lot of this privilege and blessings, and also hold space for my family who was experiencing a war and there was a lot of anxiety, there was a lot of fear, there was a lot happening. And I do think that is sort of a constant in our lives right now. That's sort of happening all around for a lot of us, where the world seems like it's burning down, being a little dramatic, but like it does, you see all this stuff online and it's a lot of doom scrolling. There's a lot of terrible things, like actual terrible things happening with ICE and immigration and, what was happening with Iran and even foreign policy and kind of the wars the genocide in Palestine, and all of these things are happening. And then we're just supposed to like move on with our lives, and we're supposed to work, and we have to pay bills, and we have to keep things going. And it feels very disjointed, and it feels very like, well, how do I hold these different parts of my life. How do I move on? How do I take my kids to soccer practice and, have a Friday night with friends when I am inundated with the terrible, terrible things that are happening in the world? And I don't have an answer for that. Like, I think managing your mind is really helpful. I think learning how to manage those thoughts so that you don't burn yourself out. But I say it to say that, like, I feel it just as much as I think anybody else. And I think that for a lot of us, it's not a wonder that this moment in history is also getting us to question, like, what is it that I'm doing with my life, and what should I be doing? What do I want to be doing? And I think a lot of people are in this moment of reevaluating what they want their futures to look like, what they want their work to look like, where they want to live, all of these questions, because really so much is coming. I think so much is just, it's not that the world has always kind of been a dumpster fire. I think we have access to a lot more information. And I think a lot of us have access to information outside of mainstream media. And so we get to see things in ways that maybe we didn't see before, and that changes your perspective. And so I know for me, already going into that month, I had been going through a transition period. I've spoken about how I made the decision to shut down my membership. So I had the Quitter Club, which was my monthly, yearly membership that helped people create the careers and lives that they wanted. And I have been doing that for about 3 years. And I made the decision in March to shut that down at the end of this year. So it's currently still running. I'm loving being in there with the people that are in the club, but I made the conscious choice not to grow it anymore, not to let new people in, not to do launches. And I sort of had this decision that, like, it was time to end that container, but I didn't really know what I was going to do next. And I sort of allowed myself, like, okay, I will figure that out as I go. Like, I just know that this is the right decision. It was a really big decision for me. And so I made that decision, and then I spent April and May doing my last launch for that group before I was going to shut it down, and then doing all of kind of the back end stuff of shutting it down. And so I think June was also the first time where I could just not be doing all the time, and I went on vacation, and it allowed me time to think, like, okay, what now? And I've had this feeling for a while where there's this feeling of transition, or a feeling of, I don't know, you can call it what you want, growth, chapters ending. I don't exactly know, because I don't know what lies ahead, but there's just been, I think I've been doing this podcast and this group for, and this type of coaching for almost going on 7 years, which is wild to say, but shy of a decade, like a very long time at this point. And for a long time, it was very like blinders on, this is what we're doing. And I was all in, and I still am. But I think I've sort of come to this place of, like, but what else? And the reason I wanted to do this episode, and I want to, like, talk about it. And if you're in the club, like, I'm constantly talking about my own journey, what I'm struggling with, all the mistakes I make, how I have no idea what my future holds, or what I'm doing, how nobody does, and how we're all kind of figuring this out. And so I wanted to bring it to the podcast, because I don't know if I do it as much on the podcast, but I want to share with you guys kind of in real time as I go through this kind of transition, about how I am giving myself space to explore all this, to figure all this out, and to sit with this unsettled feeling, this unmoored, like, I'm very much in a place of, like, what's the opposite of grounded? Like, there is no ground underneath my feet. And previous me, that would freak me out like nothing else. Like, I needed control, and I needed to know what I was doing, and I needed to know the plan. And I'm watching myself kind of in this chapter, in this position of, like, fluidity of, like, I don't know what the next thing is. I don't know where this goes. I don't know what I want to do. And can I be okay with that without having the answer? And so that's sort of where I've been in the last month. I will say, like, a month and a half has been, like, partly resting and not thinking about anything, and just really leaning into joy and, like, doing things that I love. Partly worried about the world and constantly glued to my phone and figuring out what is happening and what I can do in real time to help. And so that doesn't leave a lot of time to kind of figure out, well, what's the next move? But there is some time to figure that out. And so that's really what I want to kind of go over. Um, if you're feeling that way, if you're feeling like, I don't know, I think there's another chapter for me. I think there's another evolution for me. I think I should be doing something different. I think there's more I can do. I think there's just this thing that I loved. Maybe I don't love it anymore, or maybe it's not serving me anymore, or maybe I want to just try something different. And so if you find yourself in that sort of place of transition, then I'm just going to tell you how I've sort of been thinking about it as I go through with it. Okay. I feel like maybe it's easier if I start with what I'm not doing. And then I'll give you the opposite of what I am doing. Because I look back at when I had this period of transition, when I left the law, it looked very different than what it looks like now. And I'm just so grateful to my past self for like doing all of this thought work, because it makes this transition so much more pleasant, so much easier, so much less suffering. So, okay, here's what I'm not doing. One thing I'm not doing is I'm not making it a problem. I'm not making it as if like I should just be happy. I should just be grateful. I have this great business. I should just launch the next thing. I should, stop making waves. You can never be, you're always going to jump from thing to thing. What's wrong with you? Whatever. Like, I'm not allowing those thoughts in. There just is no room. Also, because I've realized now that it's all BS, that like I am forever a changing and growing and evolving person. And that will continue to create new versions of me. And those new versions of me will want different things. And the world will call for new things. And I will answer that call in different ways. And so I don't subscribe to this idea that, you choose one thing and you stick with it, or if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and just stick with what you're doing because it's good enough. Okay. I am simply listening to, like, there is a voice within me that is saying like, hey, something needs to be shifting. Something needs to change. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the way you deliver it. Maybe it's the type of containers. Maybe it's the type of work. Maybe you coach different people. Maybe you coach in a different way. Maybe you don't do coaching. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't figured out what that answer is. I just know that at this point, like when it was with the membership and what I was doing right now is just not enough anymore for me. It's not the thing that I want to be doing. And so I'm allowing myself to be in that knowing without having that answer and without making it a problem. So it's not an issue that I'm in this space. Like, I'm not freaking out about it. I'm not like, and we're going to get to the other stuff, but like, it's not, it's just not a problem. It is what it is. Like, this is okay. We're going through this kind of shift, whether it's kind of globally, we're all going through a shift, which it seems to be like a lot of people are having these feelings, or if it's just me, like, okay, this is the shift I'm going through right now. And I think that has helped me like accept what is. Like, I feel this way. Okay, now what? Instead of spending so much time on like, oh, why do I always make waves? And why can't I just be happy with this? And why don't I just like do the thing I said I was going to do or whatnot? The other thing that I'm not doing is I don't make this mean like anything about my purpose in life, or I'm not making it like my one, like I need to figure out like one big answer. Like, I need to figure out the next thing is going to be the thing I have to do for the rest of my life. Like, I'm not putting that kind of pressure on myself. I don't even know what this it might be a blip. It might be a very small, you might listen to this in 6 months and be like, she actually didn't transition at all into anything. It's the same thing, maybe. But I'm sort of allowing myself to really just sit with the thought of like, what do I want right now? What do I want more of in my life? What do I want my life to look like? How do I want to contribute? What do I want to add to in this world? And I'm just letting myself sit with those questions without it needing to be my one purpose, the one big thing I'm going to do, the, next thing that's going to be everything. I think that taking off the pressure of realizing like maybe next year I'll want to do a completely different thing. Maybe in 5 years I'll scrap it all. Who knows? I don't have to answer those questions. Sorry. I don't have to answer those questions right now. I just have to answer like, what is the next thing I want to do? And I think, again, I've talked about this a lot on the podcast. I don't subscribe to the fact that like you have to have a purpose in your life, quote unquote, in the sense of like the way that we talk about it in our society. I think in our society, oftentimes people get, um, they get, they start this like sort of chase for this elusive purpose where they think they have to find this one thing that they have to do and then that's going to make their lives fulfilled. I don't buy that. I think you can have a million different purposes. I think your purpose changes as you grow. I think that just like any other animal, you know, I've always had this like analogy, like what's a whale's purpose? What's a monkey's purpose? Like we get this one life and we get to choose what we want to do with it and we get to decide what we want to experience. And that might be that you choose to find something that feels more purposeful or feels more fulfilling, right? You might look for something that like, hey, I want to feel as though I'm contributing in some way or giving back in some way or helping in some way. That's great. I don't think that's my one purpose in life. But I will say that like in a time like this, when there does seem to be a level of turmoil within this country and within the world, even for me, I've kind of come to like, okay, well, how do I want to show up in this moment? How do I want to give back more? How do I want to create more community? How do I want to feel more fulfilled? How do I want to feel as though what I'm doing is making a dent or helping? And whether that means in my business or in my personal life, I'm just allowing myself to sit with questions like that, to let myself like come up with different answers at different times, to explore different things. And not make it mean like, is it going to be my whole life? Is it going to be the one thing I do? Is it going to be this one purpose that I have to follow? Is it going to be like a big part? You know, it could be a small part of my life. Like I'm sort of just exploring this. The one major difference that I've noticed that it makes this transition so much easier for me than it did when I was a lawyer is that my worth is no longer attached to what I'm doing. And so I'm not making this mean anything about my identity or my worth. Like whether I decide to shut everything down or whether I keep doing exactly what I'm doing, there is no more negotiating about what my self-worth is or whether I'm worthy as a person, regardless of what I do. And so that makes it a lot easier to explore different avenues. I remember when I was leaving the law, so much of my identity was wrapped up in my work and who I was. And like, I was this quote unquote successful person. And who am I if I'm not doing this and blah, 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 all this other stuff. And so one of the fears, like the biggest thing that kept me stuck there was like, what are people going to think? What are people going to say about me? Who am I if I'm not this lawyer? You know, who am I if I'm not doing this like thing that other people consider prestigious? And listen, detaching that self-worth has taken a while and it is taken a lot of inner work and it has taken a lot of mindset work. And it's the best thing I could have done because now everything is so much more playful. Like when I think about what I could do, there's so much more excitement because it is not attached to how I get to feel about myself. It is not attached to what other people think about me. It is not attached to whether I get to like rest or whether I get to feel worthy or whether I get to love myself. Like all of that is non-negotiable for me at this point. So it's like, this is just, what do I want to spend my time doing? What do I want to, you know, put my energy into? And I've just noticed, like, I think for a lot of people, if you're so scared to quit your job, I think one of the biggest reasons to do it is to kind of go through this ego death that forces you to strip your identity from that work. Because once you do it once, it becomes a lot easier the next time because you're like, oh, I've done this. I've ripped the Band-Aid off. I no longer identify myself as a lawyer or doctor or engineer or teacher or whatever it is. Like, I'm no longer good because I do that work. Like, I've now had to reconcile how do I feel about myself when I don't do that work. So then it opens me up the rest of my life when I go through these changes, when I go through these seasons, to simply be like, what do I want to be now in this chapter? How do I want to show up in this chapter? What is the work I want to do? And so I've realized, even though I love this business and even though I've had such a blast like growing this podcast and hearing people's stories and helping people, I don't identify my own like worthiness or how I get to feel about myself based on how well this business is doing or whether I have this business or not. So like if I decide tomorrow to close it down, I don't then have nothing to base my self-esteem on, right? Like I can decide I'm just going to try something else because I want to try it. And so I highly recommend, if what is stopping you from trying something new is this idea of like, but who am I if I don't do X? That's the reason to stop it. I was actually just talking to my aunt who has been very successful and has worked unbelievably hard, a little too hard, if you ask me. And she is, I think, close to 70. Maybe want to say we had her 70th birthday. Terrible of me not to know. But no, she's not. She's mid 60s. Anyways, but she was just saying, like, I had done a podcast and she responded to one of my Instagram posts, and she was saying that she is just dealing with this, which a lot of people do, like in retirement, when they're going to retire or when they're getting to the end of their career, is like, my entire identity has been built around this career that I put everything into. So who do I become when I'm not that person? And that is a really hard thing to deal with. And you're going to have to deal with it at some time. So like, why not deal with it in your 30s or your 40s or your 50s instead of letting yourself deal with it when, you know, you're 60s, 70s and you don't have as much opportunity for reinvention, or you're at a point where it becomes harder once you've been ingrained in this identity for many more decades. So I would say that is the biggest change of watching myself go through this, is like, the stakes aren't as higher. I'm like, yeah, I could choose to do this. I could choose not to. I could choose to do something else, but it's never about my self-worth anymore. The other thing that I have allowed myself to do is to really allow it to be an open-ended question. Like, what I'm not doing is setting some arbitrary timeline that's like, you have to figure this out in the next month. You have the next 6 months and you have to know exactly what you're going to do. And I think this is one of the hardest things for a lot of us to do, because again, we sort of want to bypass the negative feelings and just get to the place where we feel good. And we think like, if I just give myself 6 months and then I figure it out, then I can have another goal to work towards, and then I can feel good and I can feel productive because I'm working towards this. And all of that's a lie, because it just doesn't work that way. That's not the way your brain works. That's not the way your body works. That's not the way like you overcome trauma. That's not, none of it, you know? Healing isn't linear. Like, your life just is not linear. You're never like, you know what, just winning, growing all the time, always going up. Everything is going smooth. It's, you know, bumps in the road. It's ups and downs. And so I think for me, one of the things that I have really been doing in this time is just allowing it to be an open-ended question. Just allowing it to be like, okay, we're kind of in this unmoored, ungrounded place, and that's okay. Let's, you know, wrestle with these questions. Let's ask ourselves. Let's talk to people. Let's read books. I spend a lot of time doing things that just bring me joy, because that is the time where like I've realized be the quietest, and I can really tap in more into like, what is it that I love? What do I want for my life? What do I want it to look like? And so it may not look as though I'm doing something, quote unquote, but it is the most, I think, restorative and fertile ground for me to figure out what I'm doing. So I spend a lot of time doing like painting and embroidery and going on walks and doing things that just like really calm me down, reading my books. And so I've just allowed it to be like, we are in this chapter. This chapter might last a month. It might last 6 months. It might last a year. It might last 3 years. Who knows? And it might continuously change. I might decide like, hey, I've sort of figured it out. I'm going to do this. And then I might do that thing and then find myself a month or two later being like, nope, that wasn't the thing I want to do either. I want to like re-examine this. But I think not allowing there to be the pressure that like there has to be a deadline and you have to figure it out has allowed me to experiment more. It's allowed me to even be able to move on and say, okay, what's the next thing? I'm just going to try something and see, is this where I want to line? Is this the kind of work I want to be doing? And I'm going to let myself through action find that clarity and get more clear on how I want to show up and who I want to be and what do I want to do. And I have some really exciting ideas. I have some things that really have sparked like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. And that sounds like how I want to show up. And that sounds like I do have those unique set of skills and gifts that I could bring to the world by doing this. And I've been kind of mulling over certain ideas of like, where's my skill set? What are the things I want to do? And how does that overlap? And how do I want to spend my time? And so I definitely have a lot of things that have sort of been percolating that are going to come out hopefully in the next couple of months. But I don't even know. The reason I say this is that it's not to say that when I put that out, it's like this is what I'm supposed to be doing for the rest of my life. This is the thing that's going to make me happiest. It's like, okay, this is the next thing I'm going to try. This is the thing I'm going to learn more about myself. I'm going to do it and I'm going to see how I feel. I'm going to see what it like, what result it creates in the world. I'm going to see if I want to grow this, if I don't, and I'm going to constantly allow myself to pivot and change. And I think allowing it to be this open-ended question, allowing it to just be sort of how I'm navigating my life and this chapter until I find something. Like when I found the podcast, when I decided to do the podcast, there was a very definitive, this is what I'm going to do and this is what I want to do. I'm so excited. I'm so obsessed. Like I cannot think about anything else. That is a very beautiful gift to have, but it's rare. Like I don't know that I have felt that since then, So I feel like maybe that comes again. Maybe I find something and it's like, this is it, Golly. We're going all in on this for the next 5 to 10 years. And maybe there isn't. Maybe it's just like, hey, you're in midlife and things are going to constantly change and your kids are getting older and you're going to have more time. And then, there's going to be family problems and then you're going to go back and forth and the world is going to need you and you're going to, you're just going to figure it out as you go along. All of it's okay. I'm here for all of it. I would say the final thing that has made this transition period less anxiety inducing and less panicky and more just like, all right, this is what we're going through, is that I'm okay with the uncertainty. I'm okay with the negative emotion. Like I don't need to add more to it. What I mean by that is that obviously we all love certainty. Of course, I would love to feel happy and great and know exactly what I should do and know what I'm going to work on and feel really focused. But in the absence of that, when I'm in this place of like unmoored, ungrounded, I just allow it to be. I don't need to get rid of it. I think a lot of times we get super anxious that like, oh God, I'm not feeling great about this, or I'm not feeling super happy about it all the time, or I'm not feeling, like this is the path in my life. I need to fix this. I need to find the answer. I need to do all this stuff. And like we become this like chicken with our head cut off, running around trying to make things better. And then when it doesn't work, we add on more. Like, why don't I just feel better? Why can't I just be grateful? Why, all of these like whys that add more shame, that add more guilt, that add panic. And I am just sort of letting it float on the surface. I'm just like, all right, there's going to be uncertainty. There's going to be some anxiety. There's going to be unknown. There's going to be more failure. There's going to be figuring things out. There's going to be scary steps. There's going to be maybe big decisions. Let it all come. I can be with it. I don't need to be happy all the time. I don't need to be in this state where everything feels great. It's really just more of like, can I get quiet enough and let that all be there and kind of listen to myself and figure out like, okay, outside of what everybody else is saying, outside of what the world thinks, what do you want? And so I have sort of been in that chapter. And if you are in that chapter, I welcome you to join me in just allowing yourself to be in that chapter and allowing yourself to like hear all the noise from the world, but to get quiet a little bit and to figure out like, okay, what do I want right now? What would it look like if I just let myself be in this place of unknown? If I allowed myself to kind of let go of certain things, to close certain chapters, to figure out what the next step is without knowing what the whole path looks like. What would that look like to like do it from a soft place, to do it as an open-ended question, to not need the answers, to let uncertainty be the kind of guide, like let it allow me to see what all the possibilities are, like what's everything on the table, right? Like I have given myself to explore all of it. Do I want to shut it all down? Do I want to go 100% in and scale? Do I want to do something in the middle? Do I want to add in different things? Do I want to take away things? Do I want to make a hard pivot? I mean, there's just I'm constantly like, how does this feel? I think about it and I'm like, that doesn't really feel like me. That's not something I really like. Or yeah, this kind of is exciting. I don't know. When I think about this, it feels kind of exciting. And so you have to kind of give yourself that space to like let it all come up and let yourself like trust that inner voice to guide you towards what it is that you want to do, what it is that best serves you, what is that you can do. And so that's where I'm at. I figured I would check in and let you guys know that that's sort of the decisions I've been making. I have been thinking about what I want to do with respect to the business. And so hopefully I will announce that soon. But for now, I'm just allowing it to be fluid. I'm allowing myself time to kind of explore different aspects of it. And I'm not saying I'm don't get the impression that I'm like loving it. This is not a great feeling. When I say like I'm allowing these negative feelings, there is a lot of, like I said, anxiety and uncertainty, and it's just there. So it's not as though I'm like, this feels great. I kind of vacillate between, you know, the world is burning. What do I do right now to like slowing myself down, to constantly calming myself down, to be like, hey, we don't have to save the world today. We're not have to save the world by ourselves. We just have to figure out like how we want to show up. And so it's not to say that this is like the happiest time of my life. It isn't. It's again a moment of like a lot of turmoil within me, but it's just such a calmer way of dealing with that turmoil. I feel like it's like sitting on waves, like instead of drowning in the waves, like I'm just sitting on a lifeboat and I'm, slowly kind of riding these waves and figuring out where I'm going. And so hopefully that helps you. Maybe thinking about your own situation and thinking about how you want to look at it, how you want to navigate it, how you want to let yourself kind of just be in it without adding a lot of the pressure and the panic and the anxiety and the shame and the guilt and all of that unnecessary negative emotion that doesn't need to be there, and just dealing with what is. So I hope this was helpful in any way. I hope that it gives you a little bit of insight into, I think, all of us, even when you know, I don't know, seem like you know what you're doing, or you have these tools, or you have an established business. I think it's just natural for all of us to go through this. There's just nobody that's like doesn't change and just stays in one thing and wants to stay in that. They might stay in it because they've been programmed to be in that, but most human beings will change throughout their lives, and that should cause change in their life as well if they allow it to come up, if they allow it to kind of lead them. And so I guess this is my urge to you, that if that is coming up for you, just see where it takes you. All right, my friends, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you next week for another episode.